What's going on, y'all? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. This week on min-maxing for fun and profit by request. Wall of Flesh. Wow, that's actually really easy. Hang on. Wall of Flesh, a 5th level divine occult and primal spell for 2 actions. You create a 20-foot wall of living flesh in a straight line up to 30 feet long. It can have arms and eyes and shit that I didn't realize had mouths. Ugh. Okay, I can no longer continue this joke. Actually, we're building big tank energy. If you're liking what you're seeing, like, subscribe, ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Remember, Patreon is the #1 way to keep all of this content coming on out. Gets you access to a bunch of cool things like a Google Sheet where this build and a billion other 1st edition, 2nd edition Starfinder builds are thrown up. Homebrew content can get you access in cool games and a bunch of other shit as well. But for now, let's dive in. Okay, so isn't it just ironic how Constitution is a thing everybody needs, but so often it gets underutilized? I understand the mechanics of Pathfinder are such that sometimes we get a little mad to do what to do, but there literally isn't a class in the game, even undead as of 2nd edition, that don't want to have extra hit points. When one boils it down, after magical resistances, after good tactics, after good planning, after so on and so forth, your hit points, influenced by your con mod, are often that thing that keeps you between here and death's door, right? To say nothing of, say, a fortitude save against persistent poison, or an ongoing, stacking, very painful, very bad dot. Prioritizing that score means that you can shrug these sorts of things off. I do think a lot of the time building the traditional tank requires the GM to lean in, or a lot of magic, and requires the party to lean in as well. Much easier for the bad guys to be incentivized to target one person if everybody else is way the fuck behind them. There are a billion ways to skin that owlbear. Class-wise, we will be building on the playtest Kineticist today. This build will only get better as time goes on. As it stands, if we want to have a big fat con, playing a class that can yes-and that ability score seems only logical, and we'll be playing around the tankiest of all elements. There's no different angle, no clever solution, no trickety trick that moves the Geokineticist. Double tripling down on that rock and stone to the bone, we will be playing a Dwarf Oread today. Not only does the 10 HP help from the Ancestry, dwarves get a lot of neat Ancestry feats that pass out hit points and interact with Earth, particularly rocks and stones, in a really good way, so we're gonna lean in. So far as strictly violating raw goes, we will be taking adopted ancestry for an uncommon ancestry, that is to say sprites. You probably know why if you read that screenshot that I posted at the beginning of the video. I think it's really weird that in a setting like Golarion, where definitely there are communities and people of many mixed ancestries across the place, that we're locking a feat to a certain few groups of folks. Some people will scream it's for balance at the top of their lungs at this, but like, definitely could have done an Unbreakable Goblin who was adopted by dwarves for mountain stoutness. I also like the notion of dwarf plus fey plus very tied to earth being something like the PC equivalent of, say, a Korred or Petch or like a Glaystig even. There's a lot of overlap there in really cool ways, so I'm gonna lean in. We'll be taking the dedicated gate today, all earth, all the time. For our background, anything that buffs Constitution and Strength or Dexterity, depending on whether or not you're buffing Strength or Dexterity from your ancestry. We will begin the game with a Strengthened Dexterity of 14. We need to, for reasons that half the chat has already guessed, a Constitution of 18, because if you don't rock in stone, you ain't coming home. An Intelligence of 10, reading is a thing we do sometimes. A Wisdom of 14, the tank doesn't want to get debuffed by will save spells, this is important. And a Charisma of 8, all the more reason for when your bluff check fumbles when you shout, I am not Kineticist, I am Melon Lord. Anyway, let's hit the feats. You knew you would see free Archetype here. Follow this card. If you don't know what that is, it's cool. I'm gonna keep using it. We've got a total of 4 feats coming down at level 1. Elemental Weapon. When we do that one action gather element thing, we can turn it into a weapon, which we wield in the hand we use to gather. When we select it, we choose an element, earth, and one type of weapon. The damage type for us will change to bludgeoning. It's still expended when we explode stuff. We'll be choosing a shield spike. Weird, right? Just run with me on this. Combo that with stone shield. For one action, you float up a bit of stone, lets you raise a shield, gives you the bonuses of such, and you can use the shield block reaction. Shield's got a hardness of 6, scaling up by 3 for every +2 levels. The shield being destroyed causes us to lose the element, but playing the Wall of Beef TM in 2nd edition means you can augment that very easily with shield blocks to mitigate damage that is coming at you, to make the overall number, which hits the very big number, even smaller. Seems good, right? Alongside it, Tremor lets you make a localized tremor in a 5-foot burst within 30 feet. Creatures in the area take 2d4 bludgeoning damage with a basic fort save against your class DC. Crit fails cause folks to fall prone. Ground in the area becomes difficult terrain until the start of your next turn. This interacts really neat with Rock Runner, which lets you ignore difficult terrain caused by Revel, and uneven ground, made of stone or earth, like when a localized earthquake happens. Make an area of difficult terrain that you can move through, helps you better position the bad guys, get between those bad guys and you and the good guys, lets you retreat a little easier when you need to, slows down folks from getting around you. Shit's real good. Alongside it, Stepping Stones for 2 actions is probably still the best level 1 kineticist feat. For 2 actions, you summon discs of rock. They can be up to 20 feet long. Steps can go up to 10 feet up the side of the surface. The squares must be contiguous and they must be no more than 60 feet away from you. Moving across the path lets a creature ignore the difficult terrain you just made, I guess. They last till the end of your next turn, but can be sustained. You know what? What if we went in the 2nd story window instead of the heavily guarded front door? And any of the other mechanics spontaneously making terrain can do. This is full stop really, 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 really good. At level 2, we'll grab Flexible Blasts, so melee elemental blasts get the Finesse trait, and ranged elemental blasts get the Brutal trait. I think our Strength and Dex are going to be coming up round about the same time to pad out both our Reflex save for when folks try to fireball us, our Athletics check, our Fort DC versus things like being tripped or shoved or what have you. This lets ranged attacks do damage. This will probably change post-playtest to something along the lines of con to damage. Till then, this just feels like a staple. The Fighter dedication alongside it, which, you know, why we needed that 14-14. A lot of really cool tank feats in there. We're definitely taking them. At 4th level, Restoring Mud for 2 actions. You heal for 2d6 HP, and you gain 2 temp HP that lasts for a minute. Targets become 10 minutes temporarily immune from this. Level +2 gives you another d6 and 2 more temp HP, and temp HP is going to be a theme. You already got a lot of HP, what if we had even more? From another source, that track differently. It's too good to not, right? This also lets us heal others, gives us a mode ability. When I'm building around, yes, let us have all the HP in the world, it's important to me that there's also physical cool things the character can do as well. On the free archetype side, Ever Stand Stance. So we can turn that big hunk of rock that we're wielding into a bigger hunk of rock. Ever Stand Stance forces us to wield our shield with both hands. Good thing it's our gathered element. And this increases the weapon damage dice by 1 step. The interaction here is a little weird too. Elemental weapon prohibits changing weapon damage type, but says nothing about adding extra abilities to it, such as, this. Thus, our rocky shield starts doing d10s of damage, and its hardness goes up for when people inevitably swing at that shit. All the Ancestry feats fall in such really interesting ways here. I really like the progression, because at level 5, we're going to grab that reason we are in fact rock and stone to the bone. Fortify Shield. You gotta know the damage is coming at you, but I feel like as a PC in the boss fight, if you're tanking, you can probably assume even more rock and stone on your rock and stone, adding your character level to the shield's hardness if you use shield block before your next turn. This is a once per day thing, and if you don't use it the turn after, it's wasted. Stoke Element for 1 action for when time do damage happen. You can't use other impulses, but this is really good if you can predict when the battle is happening. Do this to get a +2 or +4 status bonus to damage. That would be really cool. Work with your GM. Opportunist at level 6 from the fighter will give us Attack of Opportunity, so when blocking becomes not a great idea, we can punch them instead. Spike Skin at level 8 for 2 actions, so when they get past your shield block, your temp HP, your armor class, you have resistance 4 to physical damage, except adamantine, scaling up by 2 for every +2 levels, and whenever you're hit by an adjacent creature with a melee attack, they take 2 piercing damage. You can also do this to other folks, so when the wizard just is definitely going to be surrounded. Each time you're hit by a bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing attack, the duration of the 10-minute impulse decreases by a minute. You become immune to the impulse for an hour, and you can only have it on 1 being. But since we're going to want to position things like difficult terrain in our literal body, making them hurt a little for doing par for the course, On the free archetype side, Ever Stand Strike for 1 action with the press trait. So I feel like this doesn't come up a lot, but there are probably turns where we're just swinging for the fences. after all of the big things have happened, and it's just, nope, gotta beat you up. Or you really want to do damage, but also have your shield ready. Make a strike with the shield. If it hits and deals damage, you also raise your shield. Is it a little gambly? Yes, but sometimes the map attack into the flank is a good idea. And optimization in 2E often feels like filling out a toolbox, so I'm gonna call it good. For 2 actions, Chain Blasts at level 10. Dumbest damage in the world that no one will see coming from the Earthbender who's in the front row, unless they know what Earthbenders are. You make a ranged elemental blast within the blast's first ranged increment, admittedly considerably shorter for the Geomancer, but hey. If it hits, you make a new blast from the target against a different creature within the first range increment of the hit creature, using the same map, and you can keep chaining this up to a maximum of 5 blasts. An interesting opening salvo if there's one target within the first range increment but several behind them to just do a bunch of damage. Sometimes it'd be like that. Sometimes you might be better off slamming down the difficult terrain to give people chances to buy things off, but say the bad guys are retreating. This is a strong finisher. Fighter resiliency will lean into that thing we want to do. The Wall of Beef TM gets extra HP. 3 more for every fighter feat that we've got, which in total for this build will be 8, so casually 24 more hit points. Rock Rampart at level 12 for 2 actions gives us a up to 1 minute sustained wall of stone, because battlefield control is really good, and when it comes from the tank that lets the wizards do other things. The wall's maximum length is 60 feet, plus 10 for every 2 levels up, and 10 more hit points for 2 levels up. No, really, you're not chasing after my friends in the back row. You're fighting me. At me, bro, come. Then we'll take Reactive Shield, because we're going to be using a lot of actions to be doing things other than strictly raising shields, so sometimes we're just going to need to use the reaction to get the AC buff. At level 14, Assume Earth's Mantle gives us an interesting battle form for 3 actions and a minute. Again, the kineticist really needs a couple rounds of buff times. Talk to your friend, the air kineticist, who's spying on all of the things. Know when you need to do this, and follow this card right up here if you don't know what I'm talking about. This will make you large, which increases your reach, which increases the squares you occupy and threaten for when folks are trying to get around you. You get a climb speed equal to your land speed, which you can only use to climb surfaces of earth, stone, brick, and similar, which we can make if we really need. Your armor gets a +5, item bonus to AC, a dex cap of +1, a check penalty of 2, and a speed penalty of 5. Unfortunately, we won't be taking that dwarf ability. You get a +2 item bonus to fort saves, a +2 circumstance bonus to fort or reflex saves against things that shove or trip you, or knock you prone for that matter. And this raises our strength score to 18. If it is below 18, for us, we'll have an 18 strength, so rather, this gives you your apex item for strength, which means you can definitely buy the con one, which is dope. The brutal trait at this point in your career, by level 14, work with your GM, see if you can retrain out of some of those dex things that you got. You could probably do that. Originally, we would be rocking our dex for AC with less armor, but by this point, when we're 3 actioning for a minute, big armor we no longer need, and the brutal trait makes sure when we're making ranged attacks that comes out alright. And talk to your friend who's expert in Arcana and crafting, because for our free Archetype feat, we'll be diving into the Golem Grafter. I like the flavor of you're just more earthy than before, as opposed to strictly speaking like becoming partially flesh golem. This increases your maximum hit points by an amount equal to your level and gives you resistance to physical damage except adamantine equal to your number of class feats from the Golem Grafter archetype, though when we don't fire spike skin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Next, Steadfast Kinetics, as we can channel Earth. When you use an impulse that has the Earth trait, it takes at least 2 actions, you gain a +1 status bonus to AC and fort saves till the start of your next turn. So when you've assumed Earth's Mantle, you assume more mantle-y, earthy stuff. And then Quick Shield Block gives us an extra reaction, which we can use only to get more rocks and stones. Bonus points if Rock and Stone and Terran is the thing you say when you assume Earth's Mantle. At 18th level, Rebirth in Living Stone for 2 actions gives you 40 temp HP, immunity to crits and precision damage, be pushed, pulled, or tripped while you're standing on Earth or Stone, so do tremor a lot. The damage die of your Earth Elemental Blasts is D10 instead of D8, so that doesn't say increase by 1 step, so then I feel like Everstand Stance turns that into D12s. Whack. Why yes, Tommy, whack. That's what you're doing with the fucking shield, you're whacking them with it. While under this effect, you can Gather Element to gather Earth as a free action at the start of each of your turns, which can be sustained up to a minute. Eventually, this is 50 temp HP and the D12 and that status bonus. Wild that Assume Earth's Mantle isn't a polymorph. I had to go back and double check that to make sure you could do both. Neato. From the Golem Grafter, the other feat will be taking Quicken Heartbeat once per turn. For one action, you can reduce your slowed condition by 1 if you happen to have it. Or if you're not slowed, you're quickened 1 next turn. Using that action to move around or hit a dude seems so clutch, right? Then, at level 20, the thing I promise I will on-camera pig squeal when they make it better, the Shattered Mountain breathes, or for now, weeps. For 3 actions, a Cataclysm of Falling Debris and Deadly Shrapnel in a 20-foot burst within 120 feet forces the bad guys, presuming you're not hitting your friends, to take 9d10 bludgeoning damage with a basic fort save against their class DC. Those who fail are knocked prone. For the next minute, rocks fall. Everyone dies. This makes it difficult terrain and deals 2d10 bludgeoning damage to any creature that ends its turn in the area. You ignore the first part and can shrug off a lot of the second part, most of the time. Don't roll high on those d10s, except when it is rolled at other people, in which case roll high. The dichotomy of dice. By the time we get this, the damage ticks up by d10s. Why yes, right now this is relatively low damage compared to what everybody else is doing, but it's setting up difficult terrain. Bursts are 3-dimensional. Flying creatures are affected by this. And then combat reflexes for the more you reaction. Apparently I'm willing to do that, but not make death metal vocals right now. Interesting. Anyway, for the Ancestry feats, we've talked about 1 and 5 at 9. Mountain Stoutness increases our maximum HP by our level. This is literally cumulative with toughness and turns the DC of our recovery checks to 6 plus our dying value. Real nice, because things are going to be attacking us. Then Shaitan Skin lets you cast Stone Skin on yourself 3 times per day as a 4th level arcane innate. Sometimes grab resistance 20 to physical damage, except adamantine. Then Fey Skin, like I said, because apparently we can't make up our fucking mind, to increase our max HP by an amount equal to our level. Thesis statement of this build. This also lets you, when you rest for 10 minutes, seep brilliant sylvan light from yourself to regain a number of hit points equal to your level. You get a weakness to cold iron, but like, here's hoping that the enemies haven't figured that out, and since you're getting this so goddamn late in the last 3 levels of the campaign, here's hoping they don't throw wizards at you. Then for our general feats, it's Toughness Die Hard, Incredible Initiative, Adopted Ancestry, choosing the sprites, and Canny Acumen for our will save. So, circling up the math on that really quickly, we could definitely squeeze somewhere in a Living Monolith dedication if you wanted to. And if you want to drop the shield things, you certainly could do. At the moment, Toughness, Mountain Stoutness, the Golem Grafter dedication, and Fey Skin all give us an HP increase equal to our level. A gigantic, enormous, and very well spread out throughout this character's career. At 3rd, 9th, 14th, and 17th, there's a casual shot in the arm of here's an additional amount of hit points equal to your level. On top of that, for our items, the Belt of Good Health increases your max HP by 4, while that Assume Earth's Mantle doesn't have the Apex trait. I think that will change between here and there, but the Belt of Regeneration, take that, 1st edition magic item rules. Long live all of the emo kids who wore more than one belt. Me, sometimes. When invested, gives us 15 temp HP, which when this inevitably falls off from when people punch us, rude, which becomes 18 temp HP by 20th level when you hit yourself with a big ol' restoring mud. But that's even after the 40 or sometimes 50 temp HP from Rebirth and Living Stone. Sometimes even the Wall of Beef needs a big ol' HP swing. And yeah, they asked where the beef was. I think there it is. This particular concept will definitely enjoy having a lot of folks who don't want to be up close and personal. Reach weapons, bows, guns, magic, etc, etc, etc. Fly speeds also come to mind, at least at the beginning. Big ol' bursts of sometimes knock people over, always make difficult terrain. Help those particular concepts shine in really interesting ways. Likewise, anyone who is incentivized by the bad guys being in difficult terrain, like an Aruxi with terrain advantage, is going to be very happy that you're doing what you're doing. Playing this requires a little bit of finesse, a little bit of thought. Like a lot of other things I've been spitting out lately, there are a lot of tools in this toolbox. In return for a very dedicated, I'm going to control the battlefield, I'm going to make a bunch of things, and when inevitably I am targeted for doing so, you know, like wizards and shit often do, I can shrug off pain because I've got this big old con. Well, I mean, that kind of says it all there. It's an interesting upside over the Control Wizard that lets the Control Wizard behind this person, or the Evoker behind this person, control or evoke as they see fit. Like I said, this one's going to get even more interesting when Rage of Elements comes out too. For now, though, that's where I'm going to leave this one for today. What do y'all think? Should I have done the Unbreakable Goblin adopted by Dwarf Barbarian? I mean, there'd be less toolbox and more punch, I suppose. Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.